Yeah, g'day and welcome back to my foundry. I'm trying to make some motor mounts for my CNC lathe conversion. Last week when I did the first attempt at casting, it was a complete failure. So this is going back in the pot. And this week I'm going to try again and hopefully do a better job. Now before the next casting session can begin, I'm going to need to do a bit of repair here, because that's not good. Not sure why, but I doweled this one. Maybe that was some fit of woodworking perfectionism. Yeah, nah. Right, let's check the scrap wood pile for suitable replacements. This one might be okay. And probably one of these other offcuts, I guess. Much to my shame, I don't even own a claw hammer. $90mm, 94mm. Man, this doesn't even come close to cutting straight. $90, $90. It seems parallel, but the thing must be flexing around like crazy once it starts cutting. Seems flat enough, that'll work. Now for my next trick, I need to make nice, clean castings. And part of that is to be more careful when I heat the metal to stop the crap getting in there in the first place. I've also been told to do a better gating system. Now the way the professionals would do this would be to make a void in the sand and put in a filter, like a ceramic filter, to catch all of the dross and slag so that it can't get as far as the actual part. But I don't have any of those filters available, so we'll have to make do. Another good bit of advice I got from the comments section was to put 2 tabs on the side of the patterns in line with the T-slots of the table, and then I can just fixture it straight down like that. Now if you think of the level of the bed as the parting line, this piece will be in the drag, so it'll be below the parting line. The molten metal is going to come in through there. I'll just cut across to here, so the molten metal can go in through there. And then it can fill up the mould, and I've got my bits for the hold down clamps. That's the idea. Wonder if it works. Next up, I need to make a tool, and kind of like a spoon for skimming all the slag and dross off the top of the molten metal. So for that I'm going to weld a kind of spoony end to this piece of rebar, but I also want a shield to keep the radiant heat off my hands and gloves. So heat shield goes on and gets fastened with a M4. Okay, how does that look? Nicely shielded for scooping out the slag. Now I've been asked to say a few words about my casting practice, so I think the first thing to talk about is sand. It's basically just a mix of play sand and 10% bentonite. You can buy what's called naturally bonded sands, where the river mixed that itself and you just dig it out of the ground. In this case it's a synthetic sand because I did it. To make it sticky and work, it needs a bit of water, and it needs to be nicely sort of mixed in together and squished all together. So for that I've got the sand muller here. This sand's still dry from its last usage, so let's just mull it to break up all the little lumps. Then we'll add some water to make it nice and sticky, and then we can use it. Now you can see, after mulling, if you grip it and squeeze it, it becomes a nice solid mess. That's what you want. Right, now the sand's prepared, the next thing is to ram up a mould. So for that we've got a flask, 2 parts. Top part is the cope, bottom part's the drag. Pinned together for alignment, and we'll start with the drag. All the parts that get moulded get a bit of parting powder, makes them easier to remove. And in this case, that's the only part that's going in the drag. You want at least like a bit over an inch all around, even more is better. Especially with iron, there's a lot of heat that's going to radiate out from these parts to the sides. And now we can put on some facing sand. Just sift it to make sure that there's no old bits of metal, leaves, anything like that sticking right against the pattern. That could cause a little inclusion or look bad. Now just with the fingers, or start firming up around that piece, just that it doesn't move in the mould. And I can start adding the backing sand and ramming as I go. Now I'm sure you've all seen this process before, but if you haven't, I would recommend going and looking at the channel Lucky Gen 1001. He's actually a professional foundryman, and yeah, his work is just outstanding. Not some hobbyist like me. Right, I'll strike that off flat. To make it separate nicely, put on plenty of parting powder. In this case I'm using foot powder because I ran out of talc. Need to get some more. Now here I've also got my sprue where the metal's going to be poured in. Now that the moulding's done, I can open that up, take out the pattern and put the mould back together, ready for pouring. Now last time I moulded this, I had some problem getting this center boss to pull cleanly. I'll just push a couple of nails down in it to try and reinforce it. I think there's just a little bit of a lip that keeps catching here. Doing this will make a little bit of flashing in the casting. That's not a real problem because I'm going to machine this away anyway. Now you can see here there's quite a bit of that's going to break out. There it goes. So all of that's now going to be a defect in the casting. Once again, it's going to get machined anyway, so I'm really not too worried about that. I would like it to pull a little bit cleaner, but I think there's a slight radius here which catches, and maybe the surface finish is not good enough. So that's the first mold finished. There we go. The super important bit I missed last time, weight the mold down. Right, let's repeat that again with the bigger piece. So this is the way I actually wanted to do it, where I then, once it's molded, I'll cut a runner across for the metal to get in. Runner, a gate, I don't even know what all this stuff's called. Lucky I had that little thought break, because, yeah, I nearly made two of the same piece. The crucibles I use are from Mammoth, and they're clay graphite, which is normal for cast iron, I guess. One of my workmates broke up an old furnace or something. It's really nice grey cast iron. It was very nice of him to also smash it up for me, because that was a lot of work, so thanks very much, Florian. I'll throw a bit of charcoal on top just to cut down the amount of oxygen getting to the metal. Maybe I might reduce the slag a little bit. So I start and preheat the oven using this propane Bunsen burner. That furnace is now red hot, so it's time to take out the gas and to turn up some heat. Exactly the right amount of iron. I seem to have made just as much slag as I made cast iron this time, but at least one of my friends has got a lead on some borax. Right, so let's demold this and see what we got. These have been cooling for about 20 hours now, so should be fine. Well, it's looking somewhat decent. So first up, this is the X-axis casting, the one I did first. It suffers from my bad decision to stuff it into that small flask. So I've got my metal coming in, going through here, but already going straight through around the corner into the actual casting. And you can see there's some defects. There's obviously some slag inclusions in the actual casting there. Also slag in the ear, which I'm going to use to clamp it down. And I've made a whole bunch of extra work for myself because now I have to cut off that to be able to clamp it down. And if you see it, there's another inclusion in there. The bottom side doesn't have any obvious inclusions. There may be a bit of a shrinkage tear in this corner, but that doesn't matter because it gets machined off. I don't see any shrinkage on that one. I showed this to Mrs. Rotary and she said, that looks like it's not meant to be there. And she's right. Remember, that's where the sand broke out. Now moving on to the second casting. This is the ZXC. My wife said, look.
Oh cool, it looks like a spaceship. Fly into the void.
The first thing I noticed is the metal must have been nice and hot because it did rise up these little air vents quite a long way. It broke off, but it was probably at least this far up the air vent. That's good. Next thing we see is a bit of a shrink defect here. I'm glad I've got 6 millimeters of excess thickness, so that should be fine for machining away. Here there was enough space for the propagating, so it came down, ran all along, played around in here before entering the casting. Now, I don't actually see any obvious inclusions on the surface, which is a really good sign. Doesn't mean there's no inclusions inside, there may still be, but at first glance this looks like a pretty good casting. There are inclusions in the gate here, so it was good that I added it. On the back side here, there's a bit of flashing both on the inside and around the outside. You can also see that these ears are sitting up slightly higher than the rest of the casting, and this one was on a slight angle. Now sandblasted and fettled, the back side's looking really good. Looking at this side, there could be some defects through here, maybe through here. Once I start machining, we'll soon see whether I have to do any filling of any porosity or inclusions with some epoxy metal sort of fake stuff. This is definitely going to be good enough to use. Whereas on the other one, the sandblaster did show some inclusions. You can see here in the in-gate area. So I'm assuming there will also be inclusions that will be exposed once I start machining it. So this one's definitely going to have to get bogged with metal epoxy sort of stuff. Hitting with the file. Seems to bite fine, so hopefully it's not chilled. And also, looking at the smashed off surface where I broke off the ingate, I don't see that white chilled cast iron around this one, so it's looking good. Right, let's set this up. I don't like this. If I crank this down, I'm going to break off these ears because cast iron's so brittle. But if I don't crank them down, I'm afraid it's not going to be rigid enough and it might move. So I think I'll flip it over, bolt it through the middle nice and tight, machine those underside of those ears so I've got something to clamp on nicely. Well, here we are at the first tool change, and man, that casting looks excellent. Doesn't look like a single inclusion's come up. Oh, no, there's a wee bit there. I just had to halt the program because in my cam I forgot to set 3mm Z heights, so I tried to do all of that pocket in one go, and that wall is higher than the height of the insert, so it was rubbing above the insert. Had to stop it before it got too deep into the metal. Just a bit too slow on the emergency stop there. So when I stopped the program, it obviously lost its Z height. I don't understand why. Well, this crash is especially hard on the ego because this is a lesson I've learnt before and forgotten. When cancelling a program, it also cancels the tool length offset. And when I edited the program to make the 3 layers of Z height, because I was going to keep using the same tool, I didn't reload the tool. Therefore, when I restarted, I didn't have a G43 to set tool length offset. And that's what happened. I think the root cause of this was very much a lack of currency. This same lack of currency was also an issue for airline pilots returning from COVID lockdowns. Like there was an example of a Boeing 737 unstabilized approach into Aberdeen back in 2021, which was attributed to lack of pilot currency. Yeah, that was it. Now that the G43's set, the offset's correct. Just reset the tool length. Well, there we have it. The first side's done. Now, apart from one really expensive, horrible screw up, the part itself's looking pretty nice. How about I give it a bit of beauty treatment? Well, that's the end of the first setup. Now I need to flip it to finish it. Now for clamping the back, those ears need to come off. I wasn't able to use my big face mill on this side because left to right I had those clamps sticking up that I would have hit, and front to back I don't have enough travel. The surface finish from this 20mm end mill wasn't as nice as the face mill. Well, there we go, one finished part. So there we have it, From old to new. It's been a lot of work to get this made, and it's also a whole lot of work to do the filming while casting, while machining. I'd really appreciate the feedback to the algorithm with a like and a subscribe. And if you'd be willing to donate to my channel, there's a donate button on the homepage. And if you really want to support the channel, I've got a Patreon page and do a live stream every 3 to 4 weeks. So come and join me there. Thanks a lot for watching.